What's going on, guys? My name is Marcel. I'm here with my boy,
Daniel.
We're going to practice that a bit more. Welcome to I'm Trying to Do It. This is Season 2, Episode 4. Today we're going to talk about men and tears. What's the thing you said right before we shot the episode?
Oh, I was like, dude, I think it all boils down to it's okay to be vulnerable.
All right, great. So thank you all for tuning
That's
in.
today.
Off the bat, so you guys know. Fucking, it's all right. It's all right to cry. I don't cry all the time. I have had a more regular thing, but I think today is more for me about sharing some of the things when I've cried, how I related to crying, how it's helped me connect, heal, grow, look a little bit at like why it is so weird that like men aren't supposed to cry. Some of those like old things and how we can maybe, if you're still struggling with them, maybe reframe them a little bit with you and for you. So on that note, shall we?
Absolutely. That was the most synchronized little crispy we got.
We're getting better at this.
All right. Still no sponsorship. That's crazy.
If nothing else, we're getting better at opening the can at the same time. So that's a great day for us.
Can't nail the intro, but the can opening, that we can do.
All right, so that's what we're going to get into later. But my guy, we caught up a little bit. You were in Malaysia. I was in Vermont. I was in Italy. Like, not trying to outdo you, but I definitely did twice the trips you did. But
you were in Malaysia. I don't know. I was in Vermont, maybe Italy, maybe somewhere else I'm not going to talk about.
I don't know. Maybe I want to keep that one secret, you know?
How was it, dude?
Dude, sick. Vermont, fucking healing.
Yeah?
Spiritually healing for both Clara and I. It was her birthday. We went up there for her trip. Should have definitely also congratulated her, belated birthday and all that. But it's okay. You can do that after we shot the episode. It's fine. It's not like you're in our home, a guest.
Oh, shit. I totally forgot. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
I thought you were ragging on yourself for a second. I was like, yeah,
No.
what? And then I was like, wait, I actually didn't even say happy birthday. That's
Did
fucked
you not?
up. I think I did, but
Pretty sure you did.
I hope I did.
I'm just ragging on you.
If not, I'm a horrible friend.
Moving on from this, Vermont was fucking sick. I love it up there. Sumner, one of my absolute fucking best friends in the world, and his girlfriend, G, they've been engaged for a few months now as well, are two of the best, fucking most amazing people. So, and the beauty of like traveling to friends like that is you're in a place where there's no other friends. There's no other things to do, like compared to Germany. Like when we go back home to Germany, we see friends that we love, but then, yeah, you got to cut that short because then there's family, and then you got to go get this and that, and Freizeitstress. Yeah, you remember.
Yeah.
And there it was just so peaceful. So like we cooked together. We had a sick Bentley to drive. The Flyings were a fucking sexy ass car. Played some sports and just, relax. So Vermont was awesome. And then Italy was like all the action, like snowboarding and snowmobiling and dog sledding and snowshoeing. And it was fucking sick.
Unreal.
Really, really cool.
How many days were you there for?
5, which is really, really long. I got to fly business class with this business class only company called La Compagnie. Literally the whole plane, just business class seats, which I know you've seen on stories, so don't look confused.
Oh, no, I'm just like, how many seats do they have on the plane?
60, about, I think 72. The hotel had 66 rooms, that's why I'm like tripping. But yeah.
It's like a smaller plane.
No, it's a smaller plane, yeah. Just like 2 seats on the right, 2 seats on the left, all the way back. Just business class and like much more affordable than the other business class. It's still like a 3K round trip, but a 3K round trip, like pretty stable throughout the year. Anyway, so that was pretty cool, but nothing new for me. Felt, but everything that filled my heart and filled my soul and spirits. I came back last night, happy and minimally stressed about possibly getting stressed, even though I haven't. Like, it's been a great day.
Yeah.
Hit the ground running, and it's been good.
You're back. You're sinking back into the routine and schedule.
Yeah,
thing. So
yeah.
I'm surprised you're awake, to be completely honest. I feel like if I just got back from Italy yesterday, I'd be like,
yeah. I'm telling you, the marathon training, overall running and doing aerobic workouts is such a great hangover cure.
Absolutely,
jet lag fix, not hangover.
Both.
Both. Granted. It still was a little hard on myself because I had several moments today where I was just like, that like you do the loop between like your snack box, like your snack closet and the fridge, and then you go back to your office desk, and I was just walking around. And at some point, I stood there with the fridge door open. I was like, what the fuck am I doing, man? Like, what are you're not hungry? Like, take a deep breath, sit down, and like, so yeah, it's the focusing is happening.
Yeah, I get
But
that.
did you like you were in Malaysia? Was the jet lag
Yeah.
fucking great? Because you were there for how long?
I mean, I was there. So I left on Sunday. Ended up getting in Sunday like early morning, like Sunday at like 12:30 in the morning. So it was like technically really late Saturday night. Got in Monday midday, and then
oh my god,
yeah.
a day and a half.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was crazy. Good time.
Cool.
Yeah, it was fun. A lot of travel. I did actually get business class there, which was cool. And no, Malaysia was beautiful, like crazy. My first time ever in Asia.
Oh shit, first time ever.
First time ever. And it was just super cool. Like,
Did you think that Malaysia was going to be the first Asian country you'd ever visit?
I didn't even think, like, same thing with like
Poland,
Poland last year. I was like, Malaysia? Like, what? This is not on my list of places. But like now it's beautiful. People were super nice. The food was insane. And yeah, I got back. I think so I was there. Like, I landed Monday, and then I ended up leaving like Wednesday late at night. To come back by Thursday late at night so I could make the acting class on Friday. I was really trying to get back in time for class.
Dude, but that's like, you know how they say, how many hours time difference is that?
It's 13.
Yeah, you know how they say like for each hour time difference you need a day to adjust?
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Is
That's
that why
like
I
a
still
rule
feel
of
like
thumb.
shit?
Yeah, probably. Well, I mean, to be fair, like by the time you left, you weren't even fully adjusted yet. So
No,
like, right,
no. It was crazy. I will say though, like the food was nuts, like so good. And I probably told you this, like I'm like a vegan, but I'm like vegan-ish, you know, like if I'm traveling.
Probably told me this. Yeah,
Yeah,
you've
yeah,
told me
okay,
that.
for
I've
sure.
lived
Same.
with you.
Yeah,
We had
perfect.
steak together
Yeah,
in New
yes,
York, my guy.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, you know, I'm vegan with a twist where like if I want to try something or I'm traveling, I'm like, I got to go for it.
Fair enough. If
So-
it's worth it to like, yeah.
So I'm in Malaysia, and I'm like, well, I'm not just gonna eat like what vegetables here,
a
like
tofu?
yeah, like no, dude, line me up with like the chicken rice and all the freaking, you know, all the. So I ate my face off. Some great food, but now I'm like back. Now that I'm back on that like plant-based kind of like, you know, a lot of beans, a lot of broccoli, it's just like clearing me out. So I've been having a bit of, you know, like the bubble guts, the old rumblies, and the
Bubble guts.
Yeah.
Never heard that before.
Oh really? No, yeah, it's a fun time.
I feel like I should have heard about that, considering that that's been like 90% of my life. It's
Yeah,
just that
But I think,
grumbling.
I feel like that ties into the episode well because like this hit me really hard yesterday. Like I had gas like in my stomach. You know when you feel that where you're like, oh yeah, seriously. And you're like, my tummy hurts. So I was just like, oh, like walking around the apartment like, and trying to like hide my farts. You know, like really.
In corners,
and Emiliana's like, well,
works.
what's that?
In corners. And
Oh
it's
yeah,
never,
in corners, like
it's not
walking
how
into my
farts work.
closet,
Yeah.
closing the door, and like, I can't find it. Never mind, it's not in here. And, you know, so, but you know, I'm like making little like, and Emiliana's like, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm good. My stomach just, you know, is killing me or whatever. She's like, "Oh well, you want help? I can get you like a Pepto-Bismol or whatever." I'm like, "No, it's fine. It's nothing. It's nothing." I'm like trying to power through it. I'm like, dude, just because for whatever reason, the idea may be like, yeah, I have a tummy ache. I just, you know, it's like just sound like such a bitch thing to have. But I think it leads perfectly into this episode where it's like, you know, I'm like, okay, I'm trying to be the man. I'm trying to be strong. We're like, I'm literally like shitting my brains out and trying to play it cool like I'm not, because I feel like that's the grown man thing to do, because I don't want to say, yeah, my tum hurts because I have the rumblies, you know?
So, okay, overall, the title of the episode, you know, permission to cry, but let's not even start with crying necessarily, because it's a lot more just about emotions, right? So like emotions in the modern man. So what were you feeling in that moment, like other than the pain, right? Like if you could tune in, and like we'll start jumping off with that. Like what are you afraid of, that if you're like, oh, I have a tummy ache, that you're viewed as like less of a man, or
oh no, well, that's, I mean, I think,
do you know, like critically, like,
no,
it could be a
sure.
small part of yourself. I know you're more evolved enough to be like, no, my stomach hurts, and like it's fine, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But like,
but I think, dude, like to kick off, like what you just said. So I think this goes back to like high school, or like maybe even middle school. Like you never like play sports, like you play your sports or whatever. Like I played football as a kid. You played soccer, right? So were your coaches like super hard on you or no? Like if you got hurt or something.
I mean, have you seen soccer players? I think, yeah, exactly. I think if you compare football and European football, Yeah, you would have gotten that a lot more. No, I didn't get it as much. It's like, yeah,
I feel like at some point, like when I was younger, I don't know if it was middle school or high school or something, the idea of like you not feeling pain or like not being susceptible to like pain or emotion, like you just like put on this whole front,
Right.
made you like the cool kid, you know? And the only thing I can think of, like a couple things. One, it was my coach always telling me to rub dirt on it, you know? My arm. Get up, Dan, rub some freaking dirt on it, get back out there, you know? Or you got to like be a man, toughen up, and go back out and do your freaking job. And also just like the idea, I used to be one of those kids who would wear shorts in the winter, you know?
Yeah.
Be like, I'm not cold. I'm wearing shorts, dude.
Yeah.
Like, dude, it's snowing. Like, yeah, I'm wearing shorts. I'm not cold. I'm a man, you know? Because that's what like masculinity was to me. It's just like, yeah, I don't feel pain. I don't feel cold. What are you, cold? What are you, bitch? I'm not cold.
Yeah.
You know? So I feel like that at a young age was something that we all kind of taught. If you were hurting, if you had some sort of issue, you never talked about it.
Right.
Never showed your weakness. Never were vulnerable. Never really, addressed the emotions at all. Because if you did, people would either make fun of you or you'd be like, oh, well, I'm not going to be seen as like the alpha male of my friend group or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I'm glad you said that alpha male thing. It very much turns into this very primal thing, right? Where it's like, yeah, okay, cool. If we're talking about we're still cavemen and like, yeah, you'd probably be a stronger male if cold doesn't get to you as much. If you fight a freaking Siberian tiger and like, you have some scratches, but like, you can toughen through and still provide for the family. Like I kind of see where that's like coming from, right? Not the world we live in.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
I'm walking to school, I'm
walking to school, like, mom packed me lunch. Like, I'm fine.
With a note on it. Yeah.
I love you too. No, but also I think this very cool guy syndrome of like, think like a James Dean type dude, like smokes, doesn't bother him. He knows it's bad for him, but he does it anyway because it looks cool. And like, everything you just said, like, war stories and like these heroes that like as long as there's a conflict or like you fighting someone, which is still very much a thing like in modern sports, like you don't necessarily want to show your weakness because that gives your opponent, right, this like area to attack. So in sports, even nowadays, I still kind of get it. Like that if you're still in play, right? Like you maybe don't want to show that you're limping because somebody might just like train you and like take you out, right? So I think there's still these things, but that's really more so in this like combat situation, right? Like, and how often are we in that in life? Unless we're like competing.
Not often enough.
Should we fight? Should we go outside? Dude. Should we go outside? So I think great way to start off that conversation because that's one of those it's so fucking stupid. It's just physical pain. Like there's not even a question about, we're not even talking about emotions yet, right? We're talking about physical pain.
Right.
That you are like, scientists can measure, right? Like it's nerves that are activated because your body is like, this is not good for you.
Right. Get away.
And you're told that like, just do it anyway.
Suck it up. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So sometimes you can push through, sometimes you can't, but it gets a lot more complex once you start talking about emotions.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, and I did get that a lot more. While I didn't get the physical thing as much, I gotta say not as much. Like I oftentimes actually just had a conversation with my mom today. She's like, it's good for you that you learn to push through because now with the marathon training that you push through and find your physical boundaries more. Because back with soccer, like whenever you had a little thing, like you were like, I'm not going to practice today because So for me, it was more, don't cry over pain or over anything, right? Because you're a little girl. And like that, thankfully we now live in 2025 where I don't have to remotely explain why that is not bueno, right?
Right.
But that shit sticks with you, you know what I mean? Even if now very, 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 then back then, you can see all of that shit and still be like, yeah, but fuck, like my dad used to say, don't do that, right? And you still, like, as much as you know, and as many parts of you that comprise you know that that's it. I still find myself sometimes being like very scared to actually let go, right? To actually cry, to actually show tears.
Is that in general, like or in public, or because like,
well, yeah. I mean, I think. Oh, I mean, that's a fun differentiation. Solo, no, even solo. So I think this is a general thing to just let go. It's heightened in public settings, I think, but it also heavily depends on the stimulus causing it. So I read this thing on outWorthy. They posted something the other day about tears, ironically. Like, knowing that this episode was coming, I was like, oh my God, give me a nice bit to talk about. Tears are essentially, you can cry from any emotion. Mm-hmm. Tears are essentially just when your body can't handle that emotion anymore. It's too much of that emotion. So then you cry, and it's literally a biochemical process that balances you out.
That makes so much sense.
It's literally a natural consequence of like when you feel too much at some point. Mm-hmm. You know, like you get so angry, you cry. You get so sad, of course, you cry. You get so afraid, you cry. You get so happy, you cry. Right? Like there's and it makes so much sense. I'm like, this is so cool. But I think back when men really weren't allowed to cry, we already had the root of this though, because, and I wrote this down. I did a little bit more research prepping for this. So like, one, extreme loss. Like if you lost your father, your son, your brother, your wife, whatever. Like if you're at a funeral, you're allowed to cry, right? If you're in war, right? But specifically, not because you're afraid, but maybe because like you got to leave a brother behind, so you shed a tear. If you're in extreme physical pain, where it's like, but not tummy, but it's not. Tell my wife I love her. Not never bawling, right? Extreme victory, think like a Michael Jordan. Oh yeah, first NBA championship, like that type of thing. Or spirituality, like being enlightened, connecting to God. But in almost any of these cases back then, for one, very extreme, right? Like you had to be fucking Michael Jordan. Like, right. None of us are Michael Jordan, period. Right. But it was also that like one cinematic tear, right? It was never the full out bawling, like, oh my God, I finally got it. Like, I'm finally here, dude. Like, no, man. Too much. Yeah. Fucking too much. You got some for that, or you want me to keep going?
No, I think it's that's funny. I think it's like hilarious because like I can't remember the last, like I don't think I've ever cried and shed one cinematic tear, like one really cool, like, like I wish I was that guy, but there's no shot that I've ever done that. Also, like to your point, like because that's why the reason I asked why if you had an issue crying in public or private or whatever, like I feel like if there's ever a moment that I cried as a kid, like now I'm getting a little bit better at like being able to cry in public. Not that I'm like trying to or aiming to, but like it doesn't affect me as much because it might just like need to happen. But I used to like crying used to be something that was solely reserved for either in the shower or like in bed. Where no one could see or hear me, right. And it was like dark, and I just had like my own space, because like I do not want anyone to see me cry, right? Or like talking to somebody that I like really confide in, and even then it was like, that's when you're trying to like trying to suck it back into your face, like you're trying not to. So I just thought that was interesting, like because it is funny how like if a guy does cry, that is like. What would be acceptable? It's like not like a bawling, like a bawling, blubbering mess. It's like, he's allowed one tear to, stream down his face and look off.
Look, we said it like we stand men in tears, right? We do, but there is still, and like so I my mother taught me at a fairly early age emotional introspection. So if a situation upset me or something like was going wrong. She sat down with me. She asked me, what are you feeling? Where do you think it's coming from? Have you felt this type of thing before? And then would softly but gently encourage me to like let those feelings from the original event, because oftentimes it's trauma, right? Like the original event come up and to actually let them out this time. We tend to, like what happens a lot when people are very emotional is probably because we have a lot of unresolved stuff in the past, right? That even smaller things that remind us now in the modern day, like in the here and now, all these emotions from the past come, rising up again. So you have to go to the first thing, let all of those out that you probably held in because you were a kid, you were scared, you didn't know how to process it. And then, she would push me every fucking time until I cried. And every single time when I had this repeating pattern for weeks with this person or whatnot, like every time the situation would dissolve in the future. And whether that's me now going into the situation differently, being stronger, like because I don't carry that weight with me anymore, or if you want to take a little bit more of a spiritual interpretation, be like, I didn't need that experience anymore, so like other people just, that same person would treat me differently all of a sudden, right? Doesn't matter how you view it, but like I know, like, lived experience time and time again, that like if you go into your shit and you let the emotion out, right, that you don't, like the same stuff doesn't upset you anymore because you've let it out, because it's out of you, right? So I've done that my whole life, and now I really think that for a very, very large part, I'm like cool with my trauma, right? But it was always very hard for me to cry in front of my mom. It was later hard for me to then cry and really let go in front of my therapist, which I think is a great note for like all of you listening or watching. A good therapist is someone, first and foremost, who knows what they're doing, but two, and I think this might be more important, that you feel comfortable with, like as a person, right? Like it needs to be something because you need to be able to let go. And my therapist had a very mom energy to me, so that was cool. This split between true public and just in front of a person that you care about, still I think is very important. It's not problematic for me to cry in front of Clara, period, right? But when we're at a movie theater or something, and I tend to cry now at a lot of beautiful moments, more so than the painful moments, because I don't relate to a lot of the stuff. Like I've let that go, right? So I cry a lot out of like, oh shit, that's so beautiful. Like he finally got that. Like he wanted that relationship with his dad. Finally, like some of those like wishful things that I think are still in there. I'm like, oh, beautiful. Yeah. But I still catch myself when I'm sitting in that like movie theater seat. I'm like, I could full on cry right now. I could full on cry right now, and I like.
And you won't do it?
And I won't do it. No, because that's like it would be loud.
Oh,
like full on
sob,
cry.
like a full like.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm the same way.
To, like,
I cried at
fully feel
Barbie. You know, I watched Barbie. Which is
don't
like
get me wrong. I cry at movies, but then they're more the silent ones, like the teary-eyed and then maybe it drips down type thing.
Yeah.
See, so you do make right, but like we do still do that. We do still hold back.
Muffled cries in the back of the theater as Barbie's getting
kids
explained.
in here. Like,
is that a 30-year-old back there? Shut up.
Yeah, but it's still very much that, I think. Like how often do you see, and this is not just men though, like how often do you see or hear anybody cry loudly in public? That's not something,
No.
I don't think that's really what we're talking about. I think it's much more about like being able to open yourself up to your close ones. Yeah. Do you feel like you've used it as a point of connecting more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like, look, for me, crying, like the root of being able to cry in front of somebody boiled down to me for vulnerability, and I actually wrote that down. Like vulnerability to me, being able to be vulnerable with somebody just means you're open to connecting and communicating more with them. So if you're able to cry in front of somebody, in my mind, like you're opening up the gates for more conversation, more connection, and a deeper understanding of who you're talking to, and they get a deeper understanding of you. And not only that, but like if it is something that they've done, or something going on, you like you said, the crying helps it boil over and out of you. Like there's never been a time where I think I cried and felt worse after crying. Like I feel like that kind of like it helps you, like, oh man, like I needed that.
Yeah,
or like
exactly.
Oh, all right, I feel better. Like, whew, it is exactly what you said. Like it's a release where something happens and it pushes you past 100%. You get that out, you clear it. Not that it's like a bad thing that you need to get out, but like, it's like allowing yourself to feel that emotion, to be vulnerable, leads to like ultimately more healing.
Right. More healing and more connecting. Like
Absolutely.
It's better for you. It's better for everybody around you. It is a fucking beautiful thing. So you just said it, like it's really, getting to know you better, because now I know, okay, this is how much he feels, how much he cares about this situation. And that's okay, but there's also, so I read this thing, and now I'm gonna actually promote this app a little bit for a second, because I use it almost daily. It's called Impact. Impact. On this app, you essentially just have like it's supposed to substitute scrolling on social media by scrolling through these learning paths that you can. They're very much like self-help centered. So some are more spiritual, but like all the way to like managing companies and like leadership skills and whatnot. And it's really cool. They have like these little animations, like little graphics with it, and it's a really fun way to actually learn the stuff. And I notice that oftentimes because I do use it on a daily, cites and references different books and puts them into these nice little paths. So it's like reading 5-6 books on a topic in one learning session, like not in one day, but it's like spread out over 15-20 days, and like those learnings, they kind of like co-align to paint this larger picture. Fucking great app. It's also like Apple's, they won prizes like in
really?
App Store and stuff. Like it's well done. So
You
Impact.
pay for it?
You do have to pay for it. Yeah, of course you got to pay for it. But 2 things I wanted to bring up that I saw in there. One is the paradox of vulnerability. The paradox of vulnerability is this idea that when you see someone famous or someone cool or someone like on stage, be vulnerable, be emotional, cry. You're like, that guy, wow, that's cool, that's courageous, right? Versus when you think about doing that same thing, you feel super vulnerable and you feel weak and you feel belittled, right? So when you can realize that in your head, you can, when you're feeling it, remember that in a situation where you're talking to someone else, if you're going to show your vulnerability right now, more likely that it is much more likely that they'll view it as positive, and only to you it feels negative, right? Yeah. Because I think when and there's a balance to this, I will say. There's like, because there's people that will just dump their shit on you and cry and be like, no, you pick me up. Like, no, you got to do your own shit. Like, there's, which is the other thing I wanted to bring up that I have, somewhere in my notes here that I don't.
This is for you guys listening in at home. Marcel had a lot of notes for this episode. I went in I was like, all right, I'm going to tell my coach telling me to rub dirt on it story, and that'll be good. That'll really set us up for success. And then Marcel was like, oh yeah, dude, I wrote a small novel on what I wanted to talk about today.
I did.
But it's good stuff, dude. I feel like you also you come very prepared to these things, and I feel like I learn a lot. But it's funny how you mentioned the idea of like the crying being the thing that kind of helps boil you over, because I wrote the same thing. I said that crying is just simply like an emotional release. Like, you always feel better after crying. It's a great way to handle emotions and move on. It is basically a bodily response to what you're feeling, like an inability to keep it all contained. Yeah. So why would that be an issue? Like, it's like you're poo-pooing and saying like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that. We're like, dude, your body was literally made to offload some of these incredibly strong emotions that you might not be able to just like cage inside,
Yeah, absolutely. It is an absolutely natural process. And yeah, you're right. I did prepare for this. I prepared quite well for this. I prepared quite well for this, but honestly, like at the same time, it's so overwhelming to like run through this whole list. And I remember I wanted to, it's because I care so much about this topic, right? Because I've had this path with crying, like of looking at my emotions, letting them happen, and then it literally turning me into the man I am today and all the things that I've accomplished, period. So crying is incredibly important to me and a part of why I am who I am today and why I'm so happy with that. And I wanted in college to write a paper about this in a cultural class. I forget what the exact title was. And I had a Marcel Flores at fitnyc.edu email address. Mm-hmm. And anybody who's American who's gone to like a college here knows if you have an edu address, you have access to everything, like to all the resources, every library. It's all fucking free. Like, you'd pay thousands of dollars every month, like if you hadn't. Dude, I couldn't find a single piece of literature that was focused on men and tears. So I had to change it to just tears in general, which let me down, funerals and losing people. Like, it's the same thing. Like, it's also really not that. That's a interesting note I hadn't really thought about. It's not that okay anymore. I feel like it used to be when men weren't crying, it was okay for women to cry all the time. But now that it's more okay for men, I feel like for women, publicly, it's become a little bit more of a sign of weakness. And I have a very specific moment in my head. I watch a lot of tennis now because I play tennis and I fucking love it. So I watched Madison Keys, the American, win her first title, Grand Slam, and Sabalenka, who is the current world one, lost, and she was fucking furious, right? She was first she was furious and pissed, and then she they both were emotional. They both were crying. She was crying out of like that extreme fear, extreme victory, and Sabalenka out of that extreme loss. Like at the end of the day, it's still fucking, one of the biggest tournaments in the world. But she had her towel all over her head and like was hiding that too, right? Like, so it's versus the men's, Sinner World 1 won against World 2, and they were like, yeah, okay, it was also not as an emotional match, I guess, but like, I think it's happening less overall is my point there, that we have these large outbursts publicly.
You said you think it's happening more?
No, less overall. Like, because for women it's also less. I think it's just as, of course, like in a normal setting. But I think this is what I want to say. There's a lot more women in the workplace now, right? And I think for a lot of time they felt or still feel like they need to do more because there's still the pay gap, and they still need to perform better and stronger than men do to get the same level of acknowledgement and whatnot, right? And a large part of that is don't fucking cry when you're at work, which is not the topic of our episode. We can speak out of personal experience when it comes to men and tears, but I still think it's an interesting note to the topic that for women it's maybe the opposite, like where they're trying to get some of those traditionally binary masculine qualities of like, no, toughen up and like competing with, which is just a random thought I had that relates but isn't necessarily driving me forward in any other kind of way.
I don't know exactly.
I went
off.
I'm glad I went through with it because I wanted to like show you that I had something to say that, like, you know what I mean?
For sure.
But I think I don't think it was a great detour for me.
That's cool. It is what it is. I do agree with you. I think
for a quick second there, I was like, if I say the wrong thing now, I will get canceled. It's like women are worse than...
there's a lot of women in the workplace now.
which I don't love.
No, I think it... I think, look, we came into the topic, and I think it is one of those things where, there's so many ways you could say the same thing, like the same kind of sentiment. Like it's okay to cry.
Good, you're realizing it this time.
Absolutely. I beat the last one to literal death. But like obviously it's okay to cry. I think the context of where it happens or what the stimulus is and like whatever, that's all that changes. But I think it all boils down to like it's okay. Like I think like I'm sure you, as I did, grew up with the mentality of like, you got to be tough, you got to stick it out, don't let anybody see you sweat or cry. You know? Yeah. And now, thankfully, with like therapy and just growing up and like going through life and going talking to people, it's so okay. Yeah. And I think to echo your point, like I think if I hadn't had some of the cries that I had, there's no shot I'd be where I'm at today. Right. Feeling the way that I feel about these things, having concrete stances on things that I believe in and things I don't like and things that I do and things that I want to support. Yeah. Because I wouldn't have been able to handle that emotion. It's like a necessary thing to process stuff and move on with. Absolutely. You need to cry. Yeah. Where and when is like kind of, up to you and like the circumstances or whatever. Like, no one wants to be constantly crying in the office, for example. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with
all those women.
Yeah, like all the women who are showing up at the office.
Just crying.
Shit, I'd cry if I had to show up at an office, dude. Oy. Oh, yeah. Sorry, guys.
No, dude. Exactly. I think this whole man up thing is obviously fucking outdated, and I think the way to man up nowadays is to be courageous enough and strong enough to not only know what you're feeling, but to be able to communicate and show that. And for all the guys out there who think that they're going to get the girl if they're just the tough guy, in my experience, I have connected much more deeply and attracted women more when I was
sobbing in front of them at a bar.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because they're like, oh my God, how can I help you? I was like, take me home now.
Take me home.
No, because yeah, like they're like, oh my God, finally a man who is in touch with his emotions. Yeah. That means I can talk to him. That means we can work together and grow. And obviously, like, that's what I have now in my relationship, where it's like, I talk about what I feel constantly.
Absolutely.
And that's the reason this works. And that's the reason I love her. You know what I mean? Because like we get to share, we get to know each other more deeply as we continue to grow. And I think that's also that's a way that you can make a relationship work long term, because as you continue to change, which inevitably happens, both of you change. That's how you make sure that you continue changing together, because you keep getting to know each other as you evolve. So that means you grow in the same direction, or you notice early on that you're maybe going apart and maybe this is not the right thing anymore. But most likely, if you have the right partner, it is the key to growing for yourself, but also together.
I mean, I think even ideally for yourself. Like, let's assume you don't even have a partner. Finding out what you're crying about and over is a great guideline for what you believe in and where you stand on certain things, because you're realizing, okay, I'm getting worked up to a point where this is.
I'm gonna run over there, because I think that's literally I jumped. You just said that.
Yeah.
And I was like, hell yeah, but also it helps in a relationship.
Oh,
so
cool,
let's not go back
Yeah,
1 and 2, and let's not go back to 1. Cool. I love you, but I want to stop this now.
Great. I talk a lot. Yeah, for sure. Want me to cry about it? I'm not a...
I would like to see it here. I would like to get to know you better.
Have I not cried in front of you yet?
We haven't cried in front of each other yet.
No,
not even on mushrooms.
When's the last time you cried? If you don't want me asking.
Yeah. Last time I cried was during Wicked, the dance scene.
Oh.
Yeah. When she finally like turns around and becomes humane and like a good person, Ariana.
Yeah.
I also just love Ariana.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, that one got me. But that was one of those like pretty cries. The last ugly cry, I think a couple of months ago. But I don't have that's the thing, like I don't hold on to those moments, because there's such a release and let go that I literally can't even tell you what I would have cried about anymore, because it's like it's fucking flushed out the system.
Yeah.
How about you? When's the last time you cried?
I mean, the only thing I can think of is probably like last year, dealing with like just a guy who was a little older, reminded me of my grandpa, and I was like, that's tough. My grandpa passed a bit ago, so it was like a memory of like, oh, okay, like. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like I'm with you, where I think once you get it out, it's one of those things you're like, oh, okay, nice. Yeah. I don't, I'm not keeping tabs on all the times that I've cried. Like who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Like cry, bro. It's fine.
Yeah. Sometimes, if anything, I'm like, shit, it's time to like.
Yeah. Sometimes you need it.
Yeah. I was like, I would like to like cry again sometimes. I will say a little glass of wine helps with that sometimes. Like just a little but yeah. I think that's a good place to wrap up, no?
I agree. Like I said, I think it's a very easy topic to beat to death.
Yeah.
But, because, obviously, 2025.
Yeah, I think so.
It's okay
but
to
still,
cry.
I still hope that this reached some ears that either we're still struggling, or, I mean, frankly, I'm still struggling. Like, as okay as it is, I'm still struggling to just let it happen. Like, it's still, I think, a task to learn to truly be yourself and just let go and not be afraid of what other people think. Like, I think as evolved as I am in many ways, in my definition of what it means to be a good modern man, right? I think I still got room to grow, even though this up here knows it. The heart down below is just still catching up.
Well, I think that's a good challenge. You know how every now and again I feel like I like issuing these weekly challenges.
I like you're the
all
challenge.
Right, well,
I'm the intro guy. You're the challenge guy.
Well, like I feel like after this episode, that's something to work on. Because I noticed the same thing. There's times where I'm sitting somewhere and I'm noticing, like I want to cry, but I'm not going to let myself do it. Why? Why not?
Okay, I'll keep it in the back of my head.
You think about it.
Next time
honestly,
I'll be in.
Let it go sometime.
Next time I'll be in the. Next time I'm there, right?
Yeah.
I'm at the brink.
You know what's funny?
Yeah.
In acting class, we use a lot of repetition.
Right.
So sometimes you say something and you just got to repeat with your partner or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's been some times where people have cried.
Right.
And and the teacher always, it's never like, oh no, stop. It's always like, feel it, sit in it.
Of course.
Keep going.
Dude, that's why I wanted to act, because that's a place where it's such a safe place to live out your emotions without and it's rewarded.
I think there is a reward at the end of the cry, whether it's an acting class or not.
That's a chair you wanted to put up top.
Just want to have the last word.
Yeah, you did. That's it. All right, dude. I love you, man. Thanks.
We do this.
We're doing this. This doesn't hit quite right.
I know
when
you're
we're
sitting is weird. The table,
it's
it's
way
like
too much
3
stuff
feet
between
apart.
us. I prefer when 3 feet inside you.
3 feet. You guys hear that?
That's
Crazy.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of feet. I can fit it. Anyway.
All right. Love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Can't believe that you would do this to yourself, but thank you for tuning in.
See you guys next week.
See you next week.
Love you.
Love you. Bye.